Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Sustainability Institute Sustainability Chat for June. My name is Casey Meehan. I am the one of the directors for the Sustainability Institute in charge of programming, and I would like to welcome you to this month's chat. If you're not familiar with the Sustainability Institute, we are a local driftless-based nonprofit that celebrates regional sustainability efforts. And really our goal is to promote a positive future vision of sustainability for the driftless region. Few things here before we get going. First of all, please, if you could keep your cameras off and your microphones muted, that would be great for the duration. It just helps preserve our stream here. There will be a chance certainly for Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, please do put them in the chat feature of Zoom, and we will get to them. We'll have a Q&A session, after about 25 minutes or so of a presentation. So if anything pops up, questions or comments, please post them in the chat, and we will get to them. And I think we have just a really short poll for you to take, anyone in attendance today. So have you ever heard of Friends of the Blufflands? So just curious to see what people's understanding is of Friends of the Blufflands. Looks like, all right, so 3/4 of you have, great. So we've got 75% of you have heard of Friends of the Blufflands. Great. I'm sure you are going to learn more. Pat Wilson, who will be presenting, is just, he's fantastic. And he is going to, I'm sure, give all of us new information about it. So I just wanted to make sure that, whoops, let me see here. That's the slide I want. I'm not sure if everybody on this call is coming in from the driftless area, but I do want to give just a very brief context and definition of what the driftless area is, because I'm sure that's going to come up. You'll hear that term a few times today, I'm sure. The driftless area is a unique area that's defined by the bluffs and steep valleys in western and southwestern Wisconsin. It's really unlike the geography anywhere else you'd find in the Midwest. And it's defined, the driftless area is defined by what the glaciers did and didn't do. So, if we go back about 500 million years ago, this area was all at the bottom of an ocean. And then, glaciation, the last glaciers to move through here, the last ice age, peaked about 20 to 25,000 years ago, and it went right around this area. So you can see on that map, the green area, the glaciers just went right around it. And therefore, it didn't really flatten the land. In fact, it created a plateau of sandstone and limestone, which is what our bluffs are now. And because the glaciers went right around, they didn't leave any glacial rocks or gravel or glacial erratics, these big boulders that glaciers carried for many, many hundreds of miles. It's called drift. And so we don't find drift here in the driftless area, but you would find it in the rest of the upper Midwest. So that's why we're called the driftless area. And then what the glaciers did do as they were receding is the meltwater actually carved some really steep valleys into the bluffs around here. So that's why we have these real steep bluffs. Now, the geography of this area is, it leads to some really unique flora and fauna. And it shaped cultures that have inhabited these lands from the beginning of when people were here. So from the Ho-Chunk people and their ancestors right up through the present. So preserving and conserving the driftless area and these bluffs, it's really important culturally and also environmentally. So we are joined today by Pat Wilson. And if you have been involved at all in any sustainability groups or in any types of environmental groups, you've probably come across Pat Wilson. He is involved in lots of different local environmental groups. He's the board president right now for the Friends of the Blufflands. He's also the board president for the Blufflands Coalition, which is an umbrella organization for local municipalities and organizations that are focused on conservation and preservation of the Blufflands. So without further ado, I want to invite Pat to turn on his camera.
And my microphone, right?
And your microphone. You got it. And Pat, welcome to Sustainability Chats, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Casey.
You bet.
And I have some slides to share here. Well, first I have to share screen, yeah. Okay. So can you see Friends of the Blufflands here?
Looks great, Pat.
Thank you. Friends of the Blufflands is an organization that's incorporated 6 years ago now. And it's a 501c3 nonprofit membership organization. And although we're 6 years old, I say our roots go back 48 years now, because originally it was the Chamber of Commerce in 1975 formed the Hickson Forest Trail Committee to do the Bicentennial Trail. And so the group, there was a committee formed, and they were part of the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years. And at that point, the Chamber of Commerce said, well, we're not really a trail building, trail maintaining organization. And so the Hickson Forest Trail Committee looked for another organization and became a committee of the Hickson Forest Nature Center. So while being part of the Hickson Forest Nature Center, they kind of morphed from the Trail Committee to the Natural Areas Committee, and we're looking after more than trails. They were trying to maintain the habitat. And Hickson Forest Nature Center eventually became Myrick-Hickson Eco Park, and the Trail Committee, the Natural Areas Committee, became a committee of the Myrick-Hickson Eco Park. They then went on to, well, when the Eco Park went out of business, we became a committee of Outdoor Recreation Alliance. And then in 2016, we decided to follow the model of Friends of the Marsh and become Friends of the Blufflands and stand on our own instead of being a committee of someone else. So that's how we got where we are. And just to, here is a drawing of La Crosse in 1867, and it shows a line of bluffs here. It shows the two features of La Crosse, natural features that are really defining for the area. One is the Mississippi River, and the other is the Blufflands. And you can see the Blufflands back in 1867 were prairie. It was essentially prairie La Crosse here, and we did not have the trees we have on the Blufflands today. And what we're trying to do is maintain our Blufflands. And this is a map of the La Crosse area Blufflands. It shows that we've done well as far as getting public ownership and protection of the Blufflands of La Crosse. The orange peach kind of color is owned by the city of La Crosse. The kind of violet purple is owned by the town of Shelby. The green is owned by Mississippi Valley Conservancy, and the brown, the darker brown, is owned by La Crosse County. So we have a lot of publicly protected, publicly owned land in our Blufflands. And Friends of the Blufflands is working to maintain them in their natural condition, and conservation and habitat protection is what we're about. If I go on beyond the city of La Crosse, there's a Blufflands plan, and that was developed, also came out in 2016, a plan for protection of our public Blufflands in the region. And just to show you what that means, the Blufflands plan has 3 primary priority areas. One are the Blufflands here in La Crosse, town of Madera, town of Shelby, and then the Blufflands in the city of Onalaska, up through town of Onalaska and into Holmen, that area, and the city of La Crescent, which also has some very nice Blufflands. And then we go into tier 2 up past there to the town of Holland. And so we formed, as Casey mentioned, the Bluffland Coalition is an umbrella organization, and it's made up of all these entities: city of La Crosse, town of Shelby, town of Madera, city of Onalaska, Holmen, town of Holland, and the city of La Crescent, plus the La Crosse County and La Crosse Area Planning Committee, and Explore La Crosse, and the nonprofit groups Friends of the Blufflands, and the Outdoor Recreation Alliance, and Mississippi Valley Conservancy. So we're working to maintain our regional blufflands in their natural state for people to enjoy, to recreate, for the wildlife habitat, and because it's one of the things that defines the La Crosse region and gets people to want to live here and visit here. So that is the bigger picture here. And this goes back to 1990, Pat Caffrey, just showing back in the day, in 1990, we were developing we put up maps of the bicentennial trails in Hickson Forest, and at this point we were just finishing the River to Bluff Trail for hiking. So on to the trees and sustainability. One of the things we're working on is reforestation, and what are the sustainability benefits of trees? So, well, number one, they take CO2 out of the air. They're known for that. They create shade, act as natural air conditioning, take particulate matter out of the air, homes for wildlife, flows down runoff, and filters water. Important when we have the flooding that we have these days, and increases mental and physical health. A walk in the woods correlates with a drop in anxiety and depression. And let's see here. So this, I want to start out with our reforestation efforts. This is a satellite image of Hickson Forest area. This is Granddad Bluff in the lower left for helping locate things, and the weather station is here. So we have several reforestation projects. One is at the corner of F and FA, the Skemp 2 reforestation. We have one McBain reforestation here across from the Alpine Inn, and we have one down here in the bottom of Hickson Forest. McBain's been going on a while. The Stride Foundation bought that property and donated it to the city, and the reforestation started quite a while back. And County FA was purchased by MVC and transferred to the city, and MVC planted trees there back in about 11, 12 years ago. But after transfer to the city, the area got kind of ignored, so we adopted it in 2015 to try and keep those trees going. So here's what, back in 2015, there were a number of small trees still surviving here, and we put up hundreds of cages because the biggest problem was deer eating the trees, and so we put up wire cages on hundreds of trees to protect them. Here's an example of one of the trees, and we also used a weed whip to keep the grass and the weeds down around the trees, cut down the competition. And eventually the county forester, this is Randy Mell, the county forester with the yellow backpack, he recommended herbicide treatment of the vegetation around the trees to help them grow faster. This was a Viterbo group that was out, it's mid-April, and we got this snowstorm when they come out to help plant trees, but we still were able to plant some trees and work on the plantation. And here's later on, we planted more trees where the trees died off and didn't survive. So this was a tree planting outing. And we celebrated in 2019 when we got the first acorns on the oak trees out there. First time they started reproducing. Continued to mow the grass around the trees there. And this was 2020. The trees are doing much better. We could take the cages off because they're tall enough that deer can't get them, at least the bigger trees, and move the cages to the smaller trees. And this is this year, 2023. We've got an interpretive sign up there explaining what we're trying to do, and the trees you can see are much bigger and doing much better than they were. And what we're trying to do is recreate oak savanna and oak forest here next to it, as an addition to Hickson Forest, because it does adjoin Hickson Forest. And this was a goldfinch nest that we found in one of our trees up there while we were working, and this is a red-winged blackbird nest. So there is habitat up there, and the birds are moving in. I guess the next thing I wanted to talk about was pollinator prairies. We've been working with the city on pollinator prairies, and there's the old Matthey Quarry is up here at the top of the picture. The Matthey Quarry, we were able to do a 40-acre pollinator prairie working with the city of La Crosse. And then this Fitzpatrick property was another old field that we've converted to a pollinator prairie. And Thompson Pollinator Prairie was done many years ago when we were part of Hickson Forest Nature Center. We planted prairie plants there. And a pollinator prairie is something that was an old field. It isn't still a prairie, but we're converting an old field to be a prairie or like a prairie. So we plant prairie plants in an old field. And this is what it looked like on Fitzpatrick. We first went through an herbicide to kill the plants that are there on the field, and then planted prairie seeds. You can see the rows here where the planter was planting prairie seeds. We and the city financed this because it is expensive. And this is on Matthey Pollinator Prairie, but this is what it looked like 2 years after we had planted the seeds, and was doing very well. And here's another picture. Unfortunately, this is the purplish, pink purple flowers are crown vetch, which is an invasive plant that's planted along roadsides as a ground cover. But we're trying to now we continue to work on these pollinator prairies, and one of our goals is to get rid of the invasives like crown vetch, and even worse, there is a lot of reed canary grass getting in there, which is hard to eliminate, but we're working with herbicide and mowing and burning at the right times to encourage the native plants and discourage the invasives. And just some pictures I took up there. This is Henslow's sparrow up on Matthey Prairie, pollinator prairie, and it's a threatened species in Wisconsin. So it's benefiting from this. Oh, well, I pushed the wrong button, sorry. And this is a sedge wren, also up on Matthey Prairie. And this is a field sparrow in one of the grassy areas. So again, there's birds making use of this, and in addition to the pollinators, and I'll have some pollinator pictures later. We also have to burn in order to maintain the prairie here. So this was a burn that was done on Mappy pollinator prairie this spring. Let's see, now back to the photo here. Our remnant prairies is our main passion. We're trying to maintain the remnant prairies that we have, whatever remains of what you see here in this picture. You know, there are still a few spots where this prairie holds on. In Hickson Forest, there's log prairie, birch point prairie, Zerb prairie, Lookout prairie, Vista prairie, Milson prairie, and then the Stry prairie on Miller Bluff and Matthew Bluff prairie. Those are visible on this map, and there's just off the bottom of the map, there's a prairie on Grandad Bluff, and south of that on the Dobson Tract, and way at the south end of La Crosse on Juniper Partners. So a lot of remnant prairies here that are very valuable. They're actually a rare global resource. There aren't many habitats like this. They're all on south or west facing steep slopes. And we picked out Lookout Prairie and Zerb Prairie to start our efforts of restoring these to their prime natural condition. So I have some photos here of, this is Lookout Prairie, a burn in 2018, and it shows all the leftover woody plants that are primarily sumac. And so we had to get rid of sumac. We started cutting sumac. It was so high, it was blocking the view of the prairie. This guy he works for Burlington Northern and stopped on his way to work to help out, and he's wearing his Burlington Northern safety jacket there. And then we had a group from WISCOR, the mayor's crew, come out to help later on, and we see that the sumac is pretty much finished, cut here. You can have a good view of the prairie, and it was almost a desert under the sumac, so the prairie plant starts to come back. And we had a frog here that we found, a leopard frog, while doing the sumac cutting, and we were glad we're doing the labor-intensive non-herbicide method of controlling the sumac. We cut it once at the end of June and once at the end of July, and that it puts all its energy from the roots into regrowing after we cut in June, and then we cut in July, and it helps to finish off the plant. So after all of the cutting of sumac was done, this is what Lookout Prairie looked like. Still a lot of woody plants on the prairie, and the ridge line on the left is pretty much covered. You can't see much of the rock outcrops. So we cut all the woody plants and then stacked the brush that we had cut. This is Hawkins Ash CPA, a group of employees out helping us stack brush. And then we burn those brush piles in the winter when there's snow on the ground. This is a group from Viterbo helping to burn the stacks of brush. And we also hired contractors. This is contractors we hired to clear off the really hard stuff, this is in the cliffs and where we don't want the volunteers to be working. We also had another burn in 2022. So this is after that burn in 2022, this is what the prairie looked like. We've now got all of the woody species off the prairie. You can see the prairie flowers, a little bit of yellow showing there. And the ridge line on the left side is all clear, and you can see all the rock outcrops. That's where the contractors worked to get all the woody species off the cliff. So it's looking much better. And since then, we've hired a contractor to clear off the right side, so it goes a little farther to the right, but we now consider this restored and into the maintenance phase, so we can go on to other prairies. But this is what it looked like after in July of 2022. After we had cleared everything and had a burn in the spring, which encourages the native prairie plants. That's how the Native Americans maintained prairie here, is by regular burning. And so we need regular burning to help maintain this habitat. And you can see that it was responding very well. And I got up there with my camera, and I luckily had my camera on a good day when there were a lot of pollinators out. This is monarch butterfly on butterfly milkweed. And here's a longhorn bee on a sunflower with pollen on the legs. Tiger swallowtail on bergamot. And this is a rusty belted bee on bergamot. And a hummingbird clear wing moth on the bergamot. Oops. And just some of the coneflower that was growing up there. So we were really happy. And also there's a bench up there, and it's just great to hear people get up to that lookout point and talk about how beautiful it is. And this is part of what we did on Zerb Prairie. We went through the same effort on Zerb Prairie. This was a day where it was a joint work outing between Outdoor Recreation Alliance and After Hours Rotary and Friends of the Blufflands, and people out clearing and treating woody species on Zerb Prairie. You can see Lookout Prairie is the open space in the back of this picture. And then a burn on Zerb Prairie. This is a group of Friends of the Blufflands volunteers trying to expand the prairie into this massive thicket of invasive buckthorn. And this is John Rigdon and a couple of students from Viterbo. We've got a lot of Viterbo students volunteering out there. And John has made this Zerb Prairie his passion. Here's John with a group of people from After Hours Rotary. They worked until sunset here, cutting and stacking the brush, expanding the prairie. And then there's a burn on, this is the prairie enthusiasts doing a burn on Zerb Prairie. So this is, on the left of this picture is Lookout Prairie, and on the right is Zerb Prairie back in 2020. And then this next picture is 2 years later, where we've got both of them pretty much cleared. You can see a lot more rock and cliffs, and we're both, these are in maintenance phase, so we're going on to other places to work now. And two of the places we're concentrating on right now are Stry Prairie on Miller Bluff, the one here that overlooks Highway 16 and is very visible. And if you look at it now, you can see that a lot of the brush has been cleared off the prairie. And also Matthew Bluff Prairie, the next one to the north along Highway 16, which you can also see from the marsh. And our next effort is probably Juniper Prairie, way down at the south end of the cross. Another thing, let me go back to the map. So another thing we're trying to do is create oak savannas. And an oak savanna, it's sparsely, it's scattered trees in a grassy kind of understory. It's normal forest. You might have 80% coverage, 80% canopy coverage, and 20% gets sun, 20% of the ground gets sunlight, whereas in an oak savanna, you figure 70% of the ground will get sunlight and 30% will be blocked by trees. So we were taking two approaches, and oak savannas are rarer than prairies are these days. There were a lot of oak savannas in Wisconsin at the time of settlement, but an oak savanna was really easy to plow up and turn into fields, and so we lost most of the oak savanna. We're taking two approaches to recreate. Over here next to the weather station on County FA, we've planted oak trees in the grass, and we're getting oak trees growing, you know, scattered oak trees growing in the grass. We're adding oak trees to a grass understory to create an oak savanna. And over here, we've got an oak forest. We're thinning out the oak trees and planting grass seed and other oaks, savanna type plant seeds down in here to really add the grass to the oak trees to get an oak savanna. And here's some pictures. This is the Lookout Oak Savanna, and the city named the Savannah Trail after this savanna we're trying to create there. But this was a group of mayor's crew from Wiscor starting the clearing, and you can see that it is so dense here, you can't see very far in the woods, and you can see that just about zero light reaches the ground with that kind of coverage. And they were clearing out all of this. The understory is 95% invasive buckthorn that we're clearing and piling. So it was a big effort to get going here. What we did was pile the wood that we cut and then come back in the winter and burn the piles. This was farther on. You can see it's a lot more open. And we have just burned Lookout Prairie because it's black up above. So this is yesterday. We've been working out there this week doing more clearing, and it's a lot more open. You can see a long way. You can see up the Lookout Prairie. We still have a lot of buckthorn resprouting here. We just sprayed it with herbicide and the leaves are wilting, and we have planted grass seed. We're still thinning out trees to get it down to a 70% light on the ground. So that's what we're working on for oak savanna. Another picture you can see up to the rock formation on Lookout Prairie. And our latest project, we just got a grant, $2,500. And incidentally, the work on Zerb Prairie was financed by grants from the Stry Foundation that are matched by the La Crosse Park Department. The work on Lookout Prairie was from the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin, Basadny Fund, which was again matched by the city of La Crosse. And now the work on Stry Prairie, we have a grant from the from the Stry Foundation to work on Stry Prairie. It's called Stry Prairie because they originally bought this property and transferred it to the city, and now they're paying to have it restored. And we've got another $2,500 grant from the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin to plant ephemeral wildflowers here in this orange circle on the north slope of Grandad Bluff. The north slope of Grandad Bluff, it's not prairie, it's north instead of south facing, and it's got northern hardwoods like maple trees, which aren't that common around here. So it should have spring ephemerals, which are wildflowers that grow and bloom quickly in the spring and then go dormant for the rest of the year because there is no light in the forest. But those flowers don't exist here for some reason, so we want to plant spring ephemerals along the north slope of Grandad Bluff to bring them back. And one of the main concerns is deer, of course, eating them all. We're going to experiment with what we have to do to keep that from happening, but deer are a big problem in Ipsen. But that's our latest project. And we also just do some clearing. This is off County B, there's the place where the old Matthew Quarry Road went up the hill. This is the entrance, but it's now a public park walkway. But this was the entrance, what it looked like. And then when we got done clearing, this is what it looked like. And this was the other side of the gate post. Again, we cleared it. It's actually address signs there. But helping to maintain the appearance of the parks. Another thing we've done is designed and installed interpretive signs around the Blufflands. Here we're installing an interpretive sign on Zerb Prairie, digging in this rocky ground. Here we're installing an interpretive sign in the Matthew Quarry, and we got an electric jacket to do that one. This is the sign installed in Matthew Quarry about the geology. This is on Miller Bluff, and this sign was stolen once, and now it's been spray painted, so it's the worst place for trying to keep a sign there. And this is our rattlesnake sign we installed at the beginning of the trail because we do have rattlesnakes in the forest. And actually, we're increasing the habitat for them, which is good. So that's what I have, and ready for questions. That's what Friends of the Blufflands is trying to do.
Sounds good, Pat. Thank you so much. So we do have a couple of questions here. You're talking a lot about the restoration of the habitat. How heat or drought tolerant are the plants that you're putting in? You know, given that climate change is impacting what this will obviously what we're experiencing now, but continuing in the future. So what types of plants are going in, and will they be climate resistant?
Well, we are for the prairie plants, they are accustomed to, they live on the dry south facing slopes because they are tolerant of low moisture. They have deep root systems, but we are also trying to make sure that we use locally sourced seeds. When we try to expand the prairie by spreading seeds, we we gather seeds from the center of the prairie and spread it along the edges of the prairie, trying not to bring in seeds that might come from farther south or somewhere else where they wouldn't be as tolerant. But we are trying to keep the prairie plants that are growing here still going and not crowded out by buckthorn and other things. But I guess we haven't planned ahead to try and plant something that isn't here now, but might be more drought tolerant.
Sure. And are there things that make your work for Friends of the Blufflands harder that a policy or a budget change could help out with?
Well, we have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the La Crosse Park Department on how we work together to do this work, and it does say that Friends of the Blufflands is responsible for conservation and habitat values of the Blufflands here. But the city has been good, as I said, matching grants that we receive and paying for our herbicide and things like that. But their budget is, we're kind of worried about next year's budget for the park department. It used to be in the capital improvement projects, and now it's an operational expense. And then next year the operational expenses are down. So yeah, we could use some encouragement to the city to provide more funding for the Blufflands.
Sure. What have you found to be the biggest challenge? Just not necessarily with, you know, funding or anything like that, but just in general, what's been the biggest challenge to doing the work that you're doing?
You know, the biggest challenge is trying to expand the amount of area that is protected and in public ownership. I'd say that's the one I worry about the most. They're filling in the gaps. We part of the Bluffland Coalition's plan is to have a trail that would go from the northern border from the Black River and the north side of La Crosse County down to Goose Island and the south end, and trying to figure out a route that would stay on public land or easement land or something, and that is a big challenge.
That would be such a fun trail, though. What a great resource.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And we've laid out a plan as a starting point, and we're going to mark it with trail markers, but a lot of it is along roads and bike trails and so on.
Sure. What have you seen as the, if you could pinpoint one or two things that have been the biggest change in the Blufflands over the last, 20 years or 30 years, what have you noticed?
Well, I think just the attention they're getting is great. I think the city of La Crosse and in general, the area has been paying increased attention to our Blufflands and providing more protection. And I think they're better off now than they were 10, 20 years ago, as far as habitat and trail systems. I mean, or outdoor recreational lands. It's done a lot for getting trail systems and getting people out there, and a lot of public interest in recreating in the Blufflands.
Have you seen
Sometimes worry about what?
Yeah, right. Have you seen an increase in that, especially since the pandemic?
Oh, yes. Yeah, a lot. The parking lots are full.
Yeah.
It is great that people are getting out there.
Sure. Yeah, but it can also be it's that fine balance, right, between having people enjoy the land and overuse, right? Yeah. So a question just came in. Have you found invasive bittersweet on any of the land that the Blufflands works through?
Yes. It's getting into more and more places. We've found like on the south side of La Crosse, next to what is the park there, next to the train company and the county building. And anyway, there's one spot on the south side of La Crosse that is like a nursery for invasive plants. You go in there and you don't find anything but invasive plants, and the bittersweet is going wild. But we see it in many of our areas and try to keep it under control.
Sure. Same, is it through herbicides or?
Yeah, cutting and applying herbicide. A lot of these, that's herbicide is the only way you can do it.
What's next? What's next for Friends of the Bluffs? What do you? So there's the trail. Are there any other projects coming up that you're excited about?
We just keep looking at all these prairies that could be restored and wondering how we will ever have the money or the manpower to do it. So right now we're just looking at prairies.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads really nicely into my next question, is how can people get involved?
Well, good point. You can join Friends of the Blufflands. It's $50 for a lifetime membership, and also volunteer. We have a website and a Facebook page. You had the website up there at the beginning here, friendsoftheblufflands.org, and on the website, just, or send us an email at friendsoftheblufflands@gmail.com and say you'd like to volunteer, and we'll put you on the list to, for notification.
Terrific, terrific. And I'm guessing like with every nonprofit I know in the region, we're all looking for volunteers, so you will not be turned away if you're right.
Yeah, yes, I just saw a note, Chad Erickson Park. Yeah, that's the park. You go in the woods in back of Chad Erickson Park, and it's been
Okay.
discouraging amount of invasives back there. And I think outdoor recreational lands had work outing or two to help eliminate that, but it's a big process.
Mm-hmm. One final question for you here, Pat. And that is, what do you love about the Bluffs?
I love just walking, hiking in the bluffs, the bird life that we have here. There was just yesterday, I met somebody in Hickson Forest who had a bobcat run down the trail in front of them and had a video of it on their camera, and it was a bobcat. And what else did we have? Oh, my wife saw a bear out there years ago, and we've had turkeys and wild turkey nests, and rattlesnakes are out there. We saw one on the trail the other day. But there's so much wildlife out there now. And though that, what really got me was going up to a lookout prairie and seeing that field of flowers that was just alive with pollinators. It was like a riot up there. I mean, there were just pollinators flying everywhere. It was it was incredible. That's the one scene I remember that really made me appreciate it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Pat, thank you so much for all the work that you do for the Blufflands. They're such an important resource to this area for all sorts of reasons. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you for spending some time with us today and talking us through that and sharing all the stuff that you're doing. It's fantastic. So much continued success to you.
Thank you, Casey, and everybody. I really appreciate the support.
Yeah, of course, of course. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. If you liked what you saw, if you like our programming, we do offer this as free to the community. So, but it wouldn't be possible without our membership. So if you did like what you saw, please do feel free to join the Sustainability Institute. It's very easy to become a member. Just go to our website at sustaininstitute.com, and you'll see a couple of buttons on the upper right corner. Click on one of those and find a level that you're comfortable with and please join us. And particularly, I'd like to thank our promoter, champion, and advocate members, Wade Hackbarth, Glenn Jenkins, Jacob Siamas, Raj Schnick, Dorothy Leonard, Strive to Thrive, Habitat for Humanity, and in particular, Lynn and Todd Huffman and Lee Rosh. So again, if you enjoyed this programming, please check us out. And we have more coming up. So this, we're going to take a little break in July. However, we have some programming coming up later this summer and into the fall. Definitely, you can find a playback of this sustainability chat at our website, sustaininstitute.com, and all our past ones as well. But we hope that you'll join us for our future events. Please hit up our website to see when those will be coming out. But we're expecting August and September. Again, thank you, everyone, and enjoy your summer solstice, and have a great day.